Ah, now they want to start over? Now they want a clean slate? A fresh chapter? A second chance? Hey, now that you don't give a single damn atom of a shit? Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. You see, they didn't want a new beginning. They wanted a reset button. A magical little switch that would erase their guilt, their disrespect, their hypocrisy. Not because they love you. No, that would be far too human. They want to start again because the game doesn't work without you. Their ego doesn't function without your attention. Their identity collapses without your forgiveness. But the joke, oh, the delicious joke, is that you finally stopped caring. And nothing terrifies people like a heart they no longer control. They expected you to crawl back. They expected you to crack. They expected you to stay soft, predictable, loyal, even after they spit on you. But you evolved. You became something else. You're not angry anymore. You're not hurt. You're not even disappointed. You're just done. Cold, unreachable, laughing at the wreckage behind you like it's a comedy show. And that, my friend, is what kills them. Because how do you rebuild something when the person you destroyed has already rebuilt themselves? Without you, how do you restart a story? When the protagonist has walked out of the movie, they thought they'd hit restart. But the controller is dead, the screen is black, and you're already outside the theater, lighting a cigarette, smirking at the ashes of a plot you outgrew. They want to start over. But you don't even want the sequel. You've switched genres, changed universes, rewritten your script, and they're still begging for the opening scene while you're living the finale. So let them talk. Let them apologize. Let them cry, plead, bargain, rewrite history. You're the Joker now. You don't want their order. You don't want their peace. You don't want their new beginning. You already burned the bridge, walked away from the smoke, and left them standing in the ruins of the story they ruined. They want to start again. You don't give a shit. And that is the punchline. You know what really drives them insane? It's not that you left. It's that you left quietly. No goodbye speech. No dramatic exit. No final explosion. Just silence. A silence so sharp it cut deeper than any argument ever could. Because they planned for your anger. They rehearsed for your meltdown. They expected fireworks, chaos, a scene. They didn't expect your indifference. And indifference, my friend, is the most painful form of revenge ever invented. Now they wander around their own guilt, like lunatics pacing a padded cell, replaying every word they said, every disrespect they threw, wondering which one finally shoved you into the shadows. They created the monster, but they forgot monsters don't explain. And now they approach your absence, like a ghost story whispered in the dark. They've never been this afraid of someone who isn't even there. Because how do you fight? A silence that refuses to answer? They want to start over because they finally realize you weren't just another character in their script. You were the entire plot twist. The only one with a spine. The only one with a soul. And now that you're gone, their story falls apart like wet paper. You see, they don't miss you. They miss the control. Your warmth, your forgiveness, your softness that made their cruelty feel safe. But you're not serving that softness anymore. You retired it. Instead, you carry a grin now. A knowing grin. The grin of someone who survived the fire and walked away while the arsonists begged for help. A grin that says, I know exactly who you are, and I'll never let you close enough to prove it again. They want to start fresh, because the old version of you was too easy to manipulate, too loyal, too patient, too forgiving. Now you're none of those things. You're unpredictable, you're unbothered, you're untouchable. And that terrifies them more than any anger ever could, because anger is human. Anger means you still care. But that apathy, that silent, icy calm, that's villain territory. And they know it. They keep imagining scenarios where you give them another chance, another conversation, another opening. But you don't. You're too busy living, too busy winning, too busy building a world where they no longer exist. That's the funny part. They thought leaving you broken would keep them powerful, but leaving them irrelevant made you powerful. They thought you'd return eventually. They counted on it, demanded it, believed in it like religion. But when you don't return, their whole belief system collapses. Suddenly they're praying to a God that stopped listening. And oh, the panic that sets in when they realize you're not waiting in the background anymore. You're not checking their updates. You're not hovering near their life. You're not orbiting their world. You left their galaxy entirely. Now they call your detachment cruel. They call your silence cold. They call your peace heartless. Isn't it funny? They branded you the villain, but now they cry because you finally started acting like one. What fascinates me most is how they pretend not to understand what happened, as if the universe just glitched, as if your disappearance was some cosmic accident. They don't dare admit the truth. You left because they gave you nothing worth staying for, and now they wander through their days pretending they're confused, when deep down, every memory stings like a needle dipped in regret. They keep asking themselves one question over and over. Why aren't you coming back? But the answer is simple, because you finally remembered who you were. Before they dimmed your light, before they twisted your kindness, before they drained you dry with their selfish little games. Once you returned to yourself, returning to them became impossible. You see, you didn't abandon them. You simply outgrew them. Like a snake shedding its skin, you slipped out of the role they forced you to play. And now they're standing there, staring at the empty shell you left behind, wondering how they could have mistaken it for you. Ah, tragic, but deliciously poetic. What really shakes them to their core is how gracefully you vanished. No rage, no war, no revenge, just a villain's smile and the quiet footsteps of someone who finally learned their worth. They expected a storm. You gave them a sunrise. And somehow, that hurts them more. They thought your love was a weakness. They thought your loyalty was foolish. They thought your softness was something they could exploit forever. But when you withdrew it, when your heart went cold, they realized it was their only source of warmth. Now they chase shadows, trying to find a version of you they'll never touch again. And the funniest part? They swear they've changed. They swear they understand now. They swear they'd treat you better if they just had one more chance. But people don't change that quickly. People only panic. And their panic is loud, messy, and absolutely pathetic. A symphony of regret that only confirms you made the right decision. Their desperation now masquerades as nostalgia. They romanticize what they destroyed, rewrite history to make themselves look innocent, and imagine you sitting somewhere missing them. But you're not. You're not longing. You're not hurting. You're not even thinking about them. And that reality hits them like a knife to the gut each morning. They wanted to be the ones who got away. They wanted to be the heartbreak you chased. They wanted to be the unforgettable chapter. Instead, they became the lesson, just a reminder in your mind of how far you've come and how deeply you refuse to sink again. They're not the ones who escaped. You are. Your silence became the monument they stare at in awe and terror. Your absence became the punishment they never prepared for. Your indifference became the chain they can't break. And now every step you take away from them echoes like a verdict they can't appeal. In the courtroom of karma, your peace is the sentence they earned. So here's the final joke, the grand conclusion. They wanted you to hurt. They wanted you to chase. They wanted you to drown in regret. Instead, you rose. You healed. You evolved. And now they sit in the ruins of their own arrogance, crying over someone who no longer feels a single thing for them. They wanted a new beginning. You gave them an ending. And that, my friend, is the perfect villain's punchline. They're shocked, absolutely stunned, because they never expected the sweetness to have a shadow. They thought your kindness was your weakness. They thought your gentleness was your ceiling. They thought your softness meant you'd always stay soft. But they forgot the oldest truth. Even angels have a dark side, and the brightest halos cast the longest shadows. They only ever saw the version of you that healed, understood, forgave. They never imagined there was another version, one that remembers, one that learns, one that evolves. And now that version is standing in front of them, and they don't know how to breathe. Your kindness made them bold. Your patience made them careless. Your silence made them think you were harmless. But sweet doesn't mean stupid. Kind doesn't mean blind. Soft doesn't mean powerless. They played with your heart thinking it had no limits, no edges, no boundaries. They thought you'd always absorb the damage and smile through the pain. But you weren't built to break, you were built to transform. So when their disrespect finally crossed that invisible line, when they pushed you one step too far, when they mistook your grace for weakness, you didn't explode. You shifted. And that shift terrified them more than any anger ever could. Because you didn't yell. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You didn't argue. You just became someone they never wanted to meet. The version of you that doesn't tolerate, doesn't reason, doesn't excuse. They're shaken because the same hands that once held them so gently now refuse to touch anything that drains your peace. The same heart that once forgave everything now forgives nothing that threatens your growth. The same soul that once prioritized them now prioritizes its own healing. It confuses them. This duality of light and shadow, sweetness and silence, softness and steel. They can't understand how the warmest presence they ever knew can turn into the coldest absence they've ever felt. But when someone forces the angel to fall, what rises is never the same. You didn't become evil. You became exactly what their actions demanded. A boundary, a consequence, a mirror. They're scared because the mask has dropped. Not yours, but theirs. And now they're left staring at a version of you that sees right through them. They never expected to lose access to the soft version of you. But once you switch lanes, once you understand your worth, once you disconnect emotionally, the sweet version becomes a death they can't reverse. Now they tell everyone you changed, when the truth is, you just stopped entertaining what was killing you. And here's the part that haunts them the most. You can still be kind. You can still be sweet. You can still be gentle, just not for them. They're shocked because they thought they could break you, without awakening the part of you that doesn't forget, doesn't fold, doesn't fall apart. They didn't create a monster. They created a wiser version of you, one that refuses to let anyone play with your heart twice. And now they have to live with a truth more painful than karma. They turned an angel cold, and now they'll never feel that warmth again. They're shocked because they never imagined your evolution would be this silent, this ruthless, this final. They thought if you ever changed, it would be dramatic tears, anger, screaming, emotional chaos. But instead you shifted with elegance, like a door closing without a sound. And that quietness, that's what terrifies them most. They can't understand how someone so gentle could become so unreachable. How someone who once moved mountains for them can now walk past them like they're dust in the air. How the same eyes that once sparkled at their presence now treat them like a distant blur. They expected your coldness to be temporary, a phase, a moment of hurt, a bruise that would fade. But they didn't expect it to become permanent. They didn't expect your softness to turn into strategy. They didn't expect your kindness to gain teeth. They thought they knew every version of you, but they never met the version that rises after betrayal. The version that no longer protects the people who hurt you. They once believed your heart was their playground. Now they understand it was a privilege, and privileges get revoked when abused. They whisper to themselves late at night, wondering how you became so distant, so locked in, so emotionally untouchable. They try to rewind time in their heads, replaying every moment where they confused your kindness for naivete. And each memory stings them harder than the last. Your coldness bothers them not because it's cruel, but because it's fair. They know deep down that they earned it. They know your silence isn't punishment, it's truth. A truth they don't want to face. They remember the version of you that cared too much. The version of you that gave second, third, fourth chances. The version of you that always explained yourself, always tried, always hoped. That version is gone now, and its absence haunts them more than your presence ever did. Your distance is a mirror they don't want to look into, because staring at it means confronting the fact that they ruined the best thing that ever reached out to them. They lost someone who would have carried them through storms. Now they're alone in the thunder they created. They're angry, not because you became cold, but because they've run out of excuses to justify their behavior. They can't play victim anymore. They can't twist the narrative. They can't manipulate your empathy. The game ended the moment you chose yourself. Your transformation forced them to face their own reflection. The lies, the disrespect, the carelessness, the betrayal. They don't fear your coldness. They fear being exposed by it. You were sweet because your heart was built that way, not because you were weak. You were kind because you understood pain, not because you couldn't inflict it. You were gentle because you valued peace, not because you didn't know how to destroy. But they mistook all of it. And now they see the version of you they should have never awakened. The version that loves silently, leaves silently, and evolves loudly. Your coldness is not revenge. It's clarity. It's closure. It's the end of a chapter they thought they could reopen anytime. They're shocked because you no longer react, no longer defend, no longer explain, no longer soften your edges for people who sharpen theirs on you. They can feel the shift in the air when you walk in, not because you became evil, but because you became untouchable. Your silence is the sentence they'll have to live with. Your absence is the consequence they gave themselves. Your growth is the karma they never expected. And here's what destroys them the most. You didn't have to become heartless to move on. You just had to stop giving your heart to the wrong people. They're shocked because they wanted the angel forever. But their actions forced the demon to wake up. And once it opened its eyes, your heart finally closed. They watch you from a distance now, confused by how calm you've become. They expected rage, chaos, breakdowns, but instead, they see someone who rebuilt themselves without making a sound. That quiet confidence is what shakes them to their core. They can't process how the person who once gave them endless chances now gives them nothing. Not a reaction, not a word, not a glance. That absence is a wound they can't heal, because the closure they want is the closure they denied you. They're shocked because your glow didn't dim when they left, it intensified. They thought their exit would break you, but instead it freed you. And seeing you thrive without them burns deeper than any revenge they imagined. They finally understand the lesson too late. You weren't dangerous when you loved them. You became dangerous the moment you stopped. They're not angry because you left. No, that's too simple. They're angry because when you walked away, you locked every door behind you and burned the blueprint to the life you're building now. They finally realized they will never get a front row seat to the future they once laughed at. They're pissed because the version of you they used to control is dead, and the one replacing it is someone they'll never get close enough to touch, not to admire, not to sabotage, not to influence. Your evolution continues while they're stuck replaying memories like old film reels collecting dust. What eats them alive is simple. They counted on you staying small. They expected your wings to stay folded, your dreams to stay quiet, your power to stay dim. But you unfolded, you expanded, you woke up, and now your glow is too blinding for their insecure little eyes. They're pissed because your future is something they will only hear about in whispers, through mutual friends, through rumors, through accidental sightings. Imagine the pain having to watch someone you underestimated turn into everything you secretly feared they'd become. You see, they wanted to be part of your success story without ever contributing to it. They wanted the benefits, the prestige, the clout of being attached to you, but they didn't want the responsibility of treating you right. And now the gates are closed forever. Their rage isn't about losing you. It's about losing the access to your plans, your brilliance, your glow up, your becoming. They hate the idea that someone else will get the version of you they were too foolish to appreciate. They thought you'd come back. They thought you'd explain. They thought you'd negotiate. But you didn't. You said nothing. You walked away and kept building silently, while they screamed in circles, hoping you'd give them one more chance to ruin something. Your future scares them because they can't shape it, control it, or poison it. It's happening far beyond their reach, in a realm where their names hold no power and their presence holds no value. And the greatest part? They know they can't stop you. They know the distance is permanent. They know the door they slammed in your face is the same door you'll never open again. So they sit there, angry, shaking, pretending you're irrelevant, while secretly dying inside, because they'll never see who you become next. They're pissed because you didn't just move on, you leveled up. You outgrew them so violently that the future they imagined with you is now a universe they'll never enter. And the punchline? They could have been part of your future, but they chose to be the reason they're locked out of it. What really twists the knife for them is how easily you shut the door. No hesitation, no trembling hands, no second thoughts. You sealed your future with a clean, cold finality, and they felt it like a slap across the soul, because deep down, they always assumed you'd leave a window open for them to crawl back through. You didn't. They're haunted by the fact that they'll never again see the parts of you that used to glow for them. Your plans, your moves, your brilliance, all of it is locked away now, guarded like a vault. And nothing fuels their fury more than realizing they no longer have the privilege to watch you rise. They once had access to your thoughts, your dreams, your vulnerabilities. They took it for granted, played with it like toys on a table, and now that access is gone, permanently revoked. They finally understand what power you once gave them, and how foolish they were to abuse it. They can't handle the fact that someone else will get the softer, wiser, stronger version of you. Someone else will get to hear your new ideas, laugh at your new stories, share the life they assumed would revolve around them forever. Jealousy doesn't even begin to cover what they feel. It's existential dread. Every time they see you moving forward, growing, building, thriving, they're reminded of one unforgiving truth. They are no longer part of the equation. Your timeline has cut them out, like a cancer that couldn't be allowed to spread. They thought you'd announce your future to them like before. They thought you'd keep them updated, keep them informed, keep them emotionally fed with your victories and your dreams. But you didn't. You let them starve. In the silence they created, it burns them that your future looks brighter after they left your life. It burns them that their absence didn't dim you. It sharpened you. Your glow up didn't slow down. It exploded. And watching that from the outside is a punishment they never believed they'd face. Now, they lurk in the shadows of your old memories, trying to imagine what your new days look like, trying to guess what you're doing, trying to piece together your future from crumbs they no longer receive. It drives them mad, this not knowing. They scroll, they watch, they spy from a distance, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the world they lost access to. But the more they look, the more they realize they're staring at a life they're no longer qualified to enter. They once mistook your generosity for dependence, your loyalty for weakness, your openness for neediness. But now they see it. You weren't depending on them at all. You were offering them a chance to be part of something rare, and they wasted it. Their anger isn't really at you. It's at themselves, because they know they fumbled a future worth more than every ego stroke they chased while you were still around. Their regret lives under their skin, like something toxic, eating them from the inside out. Your name hits them like a bullet now, not because of the pain of losing you, but because of the shame of knowing they could have walked beside you into the greatness you're now stepping into alone. That kind of regret is a lifetime sentence. They never imagined a future where you'd be unreachable. They never imagined a world where you were beyond their voice, their influence, their manipulation. But here you are, untouchable. They spend nights replaying conversations, trying to pinpoint the moment your heart started closing the gates. They obsess over it. It eats them alive. Because your withdrawal wasn't dramatic. It was precise, calculated, a villain's exit done with surgical silence. They built entire fantasies in their head about being part of your success. They told people they'd be beside you when you made it. They bragged about knowing you. And now they have to swallow the bitter truth that they won't even be an honorable mention. They had the map to your future in their hands and didn't even realize it. They threw it away, thinking you'd hand them another copy. But you didn't. You let them get lost while you built an empire in peace. Now every glow, every growth, every win feels like a reminder of their own stupidity. They thought you'd stay where they left you, but you ran. You soared. You ascended into a version of yourself they can't even comprehend now. Their rage is the scream of someone who realizes too late that the door they slammed was the entrance to your destiny, and now they're trapped on the outside, watching your life bloom, while theirs withers in the shadow of what they lost. And the irony? They'll tell people they don't care. They'll pretend your absence means nothing. But every night, when the world is quiet and their ego is asleep, the truth crawls out of the dark and whispers, "You lost the best thing you could have had." Conclusion: they're pissed because you found a future where their name holds no power, no meaning, no place. They're pissed because you erased their access, their influence, their relevance. But the real punchline? They sealed their own fate. You just walked away and made the future they'll never see. They always thought you'd give them a sign, didn't they? A warning, a trembling goodbye, a final plea for them to get their act together. Ah, how cute, how predictable. They built their ego around the idea that you'd never leave without creating a scene, but you did the one thing they never prepared for. You vanished. No fireworks, no fight, no closure, just silence. And oh, how that silence haunts them now. You see, people like them can endure your tears, your anger, your explanations. What they can't endure is the quiet. The quiet forces them to think, to replay, to rewind, to ask themselves, what exactly did I do? And suddenly they realize it wasn't one moment. It was every moment. Every disrespect they brushed off. Every lie they told themselves you'd swallow. Every mistake they assumed you'd forgive. You left so cleanly that your absence became a mirror, and now they're staring at a version of themselves they can't escape. A version they can't blame on you. A version they can't sugarcoat. They don't remember losing you in one grand explosion. No, they remember losing you in 1,000 little cuts they delivered with a smile. And now the fun part begins, because the mind, dear friend, is a cruel archivist. It never forgets what the heart tries to bury. Now they're sitting alone at 2 a.m., replaying conversations they thought you forgot, replaying moments where you flinched, moments where you fell silent, moments where your eyes dimmed, moments they shrugged off. Now those moments are loud, loud enough to keep them awake, loud enough to choke them. Isn't it funny? They didn't care when you were there. But now that you're gone, you're everywhere. In their memories, in their guilt, in the corners of their insecurities. They can't escape you, not because you're haunting them, but because they're haunting themselves. They didn't realize you were leaving because you didn't slam the door. You simply stopped opening it. You didn't make threats. You didn't create ultimatums. You just stopped showing up. And now they understand the elegance of that move, the sophistication of that silence, the power of a goodbye that wasn't spoken, but felt. They thought losing you would feel like losing an argument. Instead, it feels like losing oxygen. And the best part? They can't even tell anyone the truth. They can't admit their mistakes, their selfishness, their carelessness, because doing that would mean stating aloud what they already know in private. They ruined something they never deserved in the first place. They replay the way you stopped laughing at their jokes. They replay the moment you pulled your energy back. They replay the shift in your eyes, that tiny, barely noticeable flicker that said, "I'm done." They replay the moment you looked at them like you saw everything and decided they weren't worth fighting for. But the real torture, oh, the real exquisite torture, is knowing you didn't leave for someone else. You left for yourself. That's what ruins them. That's what poisons their pride. That's what keeps them stuck in an endless loop of mistakes they can't undo. Because you didn't walk out to replace them. You walked out to reclaim yourself. And now, while you breathe freely, they choke on the memories. They replay every moment they could have done better. Every apology they never said. Every kindness they withheld. Every time they took you for granted. You left without warning, and now they live with the consequence. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need chaos. You didn't need to hurt them. They're hurting themselves, one memory at a time, You know what really drives them mad? It's not that you left. It's that you didn't give them a final performance. No tears, no speeches, no dramatic exit, just absence. And nothing unsettles the guilty more than an empty stage. Because now they're forced, absolutely forced to replay every scene of your time together, and suddenly they're realizing they weren't the hero they told themselves they were. No. They were the villain wrapped in cheap charm, hoping you'd never notice the cracks in their mask. But you did, quietly, slowly, completely. And your silence now? Oh, it's driving them insane. Because silence is the one sound you cannot argue with. Silence leaves them alone with their thoughts, and their thoughts are not kind. They remember the way you softened for them and how they exploited it. They remember the moments you reached out and how they shrugged you off. They remember the times you stayed loyal while they entertained distractions. They remember your heart and how they played with it like a toy that would always fix itself. But it didn't, did it? It cracked. Then it closed. Then it disappeared. Now they sit there, rewinding the tape of your history together like a lunatic searching for clues. Where did I lose them? What did I do wrong? Everything. That's the part they hate the most. They didn't lose you in a single blow. They lost you in every moment they dismissed you. Every second they underestimated you. Every day they thought you'd stay, no matter how little they gave. And now, every time their mind quiets, it hits them like a punchline from a cruel joke. You didn't leave because you were weak. You left because you finally saw your own worth. They don't fear your presence anymore. They fear your absence. It echoes. It exposes. It condemns. Now they hear your silence everywhere. In the conversations you're no longer part of. In the routines you no longer orbit. In the peace you reclaimed and refused to return. You left without warning, and now they're stuck replaying a movie where they were never the protagonist, just the mistake. And the ending? Oh, the ending is the sweetest part, because now they understand something they can never unlearn. You were the best thing they mishandled, and the worst loss they can never reverse. They can't fix it. They can't reach you. They can't apologize their way out of consequences. All they can do is rewind, and rewind, and rewind, while you're finally living a life where their shadow doesn't touch a single corner. You know what the funniest part is? They still think you leaving was the tragedy. No. The real tragedy is that they finally understand the story. After the main character walked out of the script, you didn't shout. You didn't cry. You didn't demand closure from people who never deserved a voice in your ending. You just stood up and vanished from their narrative. And now they replay every second like detectives at a crime scene. Was it that day? That argument? That moment? Oh, they're spiraling. And spiraling minds? They make the best entertainment. Because now they see it. The disrespect, the lies, the laziness, the unkept promises, all the little cuts they thought you'd never feel. They never realized you were counting, quietly, carefully, coldly. You turned every wound into data, every insult into evidence, every disappointment into strategy. And when the scales tipped, when the final straw didn't break you but enlightened you, you walked. No speech, no apology, no grand finale, just the door closing, soft, clean final. And now look at them, hunted by their own memory, haunted by a ghost that's still alive. They hear your silence like a scream they can't turn off. They see your absence every time they open their phone. They feel the consequences every time they lie down at night. Because now they're replaying everything they did to lose you. Every mistake, every betrayal, Every moment they thought you wouldn't leave. The irony? They treated you like you were replaceable and ended up losing the one person they'll never find again. See, that's the punchline. The joke they never caught until it was too late. You weren't their option. You were their blessing. And they threw it away like trash. And now you're gone. Not blocked, forgotten. Not distant, untouchable. Not angry free. They don't get access to your future. They don't get to shape your growth. They don't get to rewrite the story. Their role expired the moment they underestimated you. Their relevance ended the moment they pushed too far. Their control died the moment you stopped caring. And that's what burns them the most. Not that you left, but that you left without leaving a piece of yourself behind. You walked away whole, stronger, sharper, colder. And they're stuck with the memories, the guilt, the realization, the never-ending loop of their own stupidity. You left without warning. Now they replay every mistake because it's all they have left of you.